Hello again, you're back with Marty in Warehouse and Operations as a Career, and I want to thank you for listening in with us today. I hope the audio's all right for you. It's been raining here for like a week, and it's really coming down right now, but hey, the show must go on, right? We've received a couple of emails about how can I get noticed at our startup meetings. What can I say? Along those same lines, all things being safety related, I was recently asked, what is a near-miss program? I've heard it brought up on several different episodes. So I thought we could talk a little about our startup meetings, our pre-shift safety meetings, and just such a program today. You know, I've always felt like our daily shift startup meetings, our safety meetings, are a great place to show how much enthusiasm that we have to our management and really shine with a little knowledge. To answer the question, how can I get noticed at our startup meeting? I'll give you a couple of my tried and true never-fail scenarios. About a month ago, a gentleman asked me how he could introduce his boss to a pre-trip sheet for their equipment. They use electric rider jacks and reach lifts, and I guess his maintenance department does a really good job keeping the equipment running and safe, but he'd been reading about the 29 CFR 1910.178 reg, and asked if I felt like that'd be a good thing for him to bring up. I told him that's a great topic and encouraged him to put something together so he could kind of present it to his boss. If you look online, you'll find hundreds of different pre-shift and post-shift templates. I'd look them over and take the points that really pertain to your facility and the type of equipment that you're using. A few of the standard points, or maybe they're just my go-to points, would be frayed or loose battery cables. Another one's always check make sure that the charging connectors aren't loose. Another great checkbox to have on there is for our drive wheels and our load wheels. Make sure there's no flat spots. Let's see, what else is good? Hydraulic oil leaks, have a little checkbox for that. And maybe radiator leaks if you use a lot of counterbalance lifts. And of course, have something, maybe a little comment box on there for the brakes and the plugging of the machine. Of course, if your facility is not utilizing pre- and post-trip reporting already, you'll want to be a little careful how you bring it up. I think that you would want to mention it to your direct supervisor and not necessarily your maintenance department supervisor. It may be that no one knows they should have a program, and if that's the case, you don't want to dip anyone in the grease. So how do you bring it up, you might ask? When I notice something about my jack that I'd normally just take back to maintenance and tell them about, I'd bring it up during my startup meeting. Maybe something like, I noticed my left load wheel has a flat spot on it this morning. I was about to take it back and tell so-and-so. I've been reading some about 29 CFR 1910.178. What do you think about maybe having some pre- and post-shift sheets back there for us to fill out? That way the second shift could leave notes on their equipment too. By taking this approach, you're not throwing anyone under the bus, and you're showing management that you're really interested in your job, the company, and looking for efficiencies. Anytime you can slide a safety sentence in at a startup meeting, it's a great thing. A great thing for you, the company, and I've always felt our bosses too. Okay, so let's look at a near-miss program. The first thing we have to ask ourselves is, what is a near-miss program? A near-miss program can be defined as really an administrative tool to help reduce accidents and injuries in the workplace. Then, of course, we'd have to ask ourselves, what is a near miss? And I found this little paragraph here. It's pretty good. A near miss is an opportunity to improve safety, health, and environmental concerns of an operation based on a condition or an incident with potential for more serious consequences. Myself, I think any kind of unsafe behavior can be a definition. Minor accidents, injuries that had potential to be more serious. Maybe events where injury could have occurred but just didn't. Even events where property damage resulted. And I also think anything where a safety barrier or a defined safety barrier has been challenged. And really, I kind of always go back to just about any unsafe condition. So let's talk about some of the objectives of a near-miss program. We need to identify the risk and prevent future accidents, of course. Fix problems as they are identified. Make everyone an advocate of safety And you hear me talk a lot about safety culture and how important I think it is, and increasing safety awareness. There's really 3 workplace disciplines that a near-miss program should address. Number 1 being environmental, number 2 safety, of course, and number 3 health. Of course, every program has to have a primary vehicle. The primary vehicle used to accomplish this program will be the near-miss report. In concept, the near-miss report is used to learn from situations where an accident almost happened so the real injuries can be prevented. A near-miss report is really the starting point to diminish the probability of an almost accident turning into a real one, kind of the catalyst to prevention. Some of those indicators could be research and investigation of major accidents. Kind of adds new data and shows that for every major accident, there are several preceding minor accidents with limited impact or near-miss incidences with little or no significant damage. We've talked about the safety triangle on several different episodes, and I'll attach a URL to a really good safety triangle. Basically, just the base of the triangle would be our unsafe behaviors or our unsafe acts. Above that would be near-miss reporting. Then above that, you would have the recordables, kind of minor incidences. And then on top of that, you'd have the lost time cases or the more major incidences. And of course, on top of that, at the point of the pyramid, would be what we want to stay away from, major incidences or fatalities. I think in most near-miss programs, there's about 8 steps that, to an effective near-miss program. To get the full benefit from a near-miss program, I think it's really important to follow these steps and complete them to really their fullest extent. Step 1 is always going to be identification. The individual must really recognize an incident or condition as a near-miss. There must be really a clear definition of what a near-miss is within our organization. Step 2 would be disclosure. Once a near-miss has been identified, it must be disclosed, preferably in writing. Having a simple procedure for reporting can encourage this process. Having easy access to those forms is really going to be key to us encouraging everyone's participation. Step 3, we've really got to prioritize everything. Once an incident has been reported, it really has to be prioritized. And I think this is a really critical step because it determines the path forward as to what level of attention is really going to be needed. Step 4 would be distribution. We got to distribute the near-miss information to the people that can really properly analyze the cause of the incident. Step 5, identification of the causes. Both direct and root causes should be determined. It could be a behavior-based or even a training-based cause. Or really, it could be a handful of other things. We got to look at all the possibilities. Step 6 would be solution identification. A solution for each identified cause has got to be determined. Step 7 would be dissemination. Once solutions are identified, the information should be communicated to the people who will actually execute that solution. And then step 8, the resolution. And I guess you could call this tracking. Once solutions are identified and the implementers are informed, it is important to track all suggested changes to ensure that they are properly being executed. There are really several ways to ensure that our near-miss program is being executed and maintained. Near-miss management team is probably the most popular one. That's just kind of a team comprised of diverse members like employees, managers, supervisors, and different workers from other departments. I think a safety committee is another really good choice. And a lot of companies may just have a single person that's designated to manage the program. Of course, what is a program without training? And there's 2 types of training that's going to be associated with a near-miss program. Administrative, of course, for administrators, and then the employees training. Administrative training? Those subjects should include the guidelines at which the program will function, like prioritizing, tracking, and the different responsibilities. And then there's employee training. The objectives of employee training are focused on actual use of the system. This type of training really must include, but not really, limited to, the explanation of what near misses are. And what are near misses? Why are near misses important and how can each individual help? Also, what is the role of each person in near-miss reporting? And I think it's important everyone knows how the near-miss will be managed and really by who. Of course, everyone's got to understand what is the near-miss process, and that would be the 8 steps that we just learned. Of course, it's important everyone knows how to report a near-miss and how a near-miss should be prioritized. And then, of course, I think the most important one, where to find the near-miss reporting forms. I've always felt like near misses are the best leading indicators of accident potential. By having a really comprehensive near miss system where near misses are not only recognized but also resolved properly, a facility can expect to reduce both the number of accidents and improve the quality and productivity of its operations. A well-designed and managed near-miss program is really one of the best proactive protection systems that you can have in your facility. I feel like it accomplishes so much. It empowers employees, enables the observation and resolution of different issues in a really timely manner, brings out new sources of problems for management to look at, and provides an invisible control over all operations at every single stage of our facility. A couple of final tips to a program like this. A near miss in the workplace is a warning or an indication that something is wrong. It needs to be looked at. Close calls or near misses on the job has got to be corrected immediately. And then constant safety awareness on everyone's part is the most important factor in accident prevention. And that's where I go back to that culture of safety. If you witness or are involved in a near-miss incident, stop and correct the problem or notify the appropriate people immediately. Do not just shrug off a near-miss. Stop what you're doing and go ahead and get it reported. Fill out that form. We can't just have the attitude that, well, that's the way we've always done it. A near-miss program is an excellent way to get noticed by our management team. Look it up online. There's a lot of different programs out there. And bring it up to your boss. You will get noticed just talking that language. Another way to get noticed by our management team is to ask questions during our startup or pre-shift meetings. As we've learned in previous episodes, our bosses love to talk about things that they know or are responsible for. They have a tough job and usually don't get the opportunity to boast about their knowledge. Now, hopefully they are encouraging us, patting the crew on the back when it's deserved, and congratulating us when we've done a good job, but they don't get to brag on themselves very much. I think it's great to give them that every chance that we can. I was working with an order selector a while back and encouraged him to bring up productivity one night. I suggested towards the end of the startup meeting to ask something like, "Hey, Chief, how are we doing on our productivity and errors? I'm trying to get my numbers up. Are we the best crew in the corporation?" Now, it doesn't matter if your company ranks number 1 or it's towards the bottom of the list. Your boss is going to be proud of what he's doing, and being a member of his or her team, we're going to be presented in a non-negative manner. Now, he may point out that we need to pick up the pace or we really need to watch our errors closer, but he'll also share what he wants to do with us. The gentleman I was working with went on to share that towards the end of the shift that very same night, his supervisor came up to him in the aisles and spent like 10 minutes just talking to him, just shooting the breeze. The next night, I had the gentleman ask if error numbers could be posted or could he know how many errors that he'd made that week. The short story is that today, his facility not only posts errors nightly, but productivity as well, and his company's HR department has already spoken with him about being a lead for that shift. Now, if you'll notice, all 3 things we've talked about today is really just communication. I know we've kind of harped on communication this year, but if you wanted to drill down to one single thing that we can do to make more money, I'd vote for us to communicate more. We've learned that listening is a large part of communicating, a point that I sometimes struggle with myself, but in my experience, if we will communicate more, communicate better, we will learn more, which means we will earn more. Well, it's time to wrap it up again. I really appreciate you checking in with us today and hope we've given you an idea or two to take to the floor with you this week. Be sure to shoot us an email to host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com and share one of your conversation starters with the group or give us a topic that you'd like to learn more about. And please check out our Facebook or Twitter feeds using that little @ WHSEANDOPS. And join in the conversation at the Warehouse Equipment Operators group on Facebook as well. Well, let's all work safe this week so we can get back together again next week.